click the links. Join the channel here, become a member over on Subscribestar. So Blade star Stefan Dorff blasts modern comic book films, says they're making money but the movies suck. First of all, thanks for the Rumble follows. It got up to 89 very quickly. I posted a Mel Gibson video over there the other day. It got 2,000 views in a few days, which is kind of the result of a more honest algorithm like Bit Chute, Rumble, and Odyssey. I didn't put it on YouTube because it wasn't quite politically correct enough. It was making fun of like lately touching on some sacred cows. Like there's just hot words that you just can't say on YouTube otherwise. It's just not worth it. So I put it on Rumble. It's like, wow, 2,000 views later. It's amazing. Anyway, so Dorff is coming off with a pretty accurate description of modern Hollywood. He says the stuff is still making money, but the movies suck. Yeah, which is not a way to endear yourself to Hollywood, but it also sounds like he's okay doing small independent movies and showing them at Sundance type of film festivals. So he was in Blade, which was great at the time and had amazing characters, which was the most important thing if you remember that cast from the original trilogy. But like all films of the period, the CGI was like painfully limited. And I think there's a lot of movie companies at the time that's like, oh, hey, what's this thing? It's a computer. It's like, what can it do? It just can't do what you think it can do, but they tried to use it anyway. The thing was, films were a lot more fun back then. It was kind of that middle period post the campy vibe of 70, I don't know, 8 or 9 Superman. And it was starting to enter a phase of just getting off the ground and taking themselves more seriously of, essentially a comic book movie, but trying to portray it in a different manner instead of just being pure camp like the Batman TV series with the pow and the smash. So the 89 Batman was also kind of in that zone also. They were trying to be serious, which you could do because the actors, Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton, and even that chick did a really good job, though I forget her name. I think it was Michelle Pfeiffer or something. So you had three characters that meshed really well together, and they gave the show some gravitas, even if it's a guy dressed up in a leather costume. So then, oddly enough, the two follow-up Batmans were kind of a return to camp. And the two Blade sequels were fine, but they tried to use CGI that just wasn't ready for what they were trying to do with it. Like all those, you should always stick with practical effects if you can. Even now, if you can make movies, like even in current year, as good as computers are, it's like there's still something about momentum and inertia with moving objects and resiliency and when people are filming everything in a green room, it just something feels artificial about it. Even in very recent movies, you can't exactly point your finger on it, but it's like it just feels things are too square. The right angles are all perfectly 90-degree mathematical angles because they don't exist. Anyway, so the same thing happened with the Lucas Star Wars prequels, where the computers weren't advanced enough to do what he wanted to do with the Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Clone Wars movies. All that stuff would have looked better with just simply small models like you're doing in the 70s and 80s. So if, I've heard people say that, that model building technology is kind of a lost art, like puppets and model building and practical sets. I wonder what a movie would look like now if you tried to do a movie like that and you were using miniatures and puppets and stuff. And it's probably a whole lot of fun now that I think about it. Anyway, so if Wesley Snipes didn't go to prison, they would have been better off just to keep making Blade movies and just try to keep improving them. It turns out that not paying the government your 40% so they can send it to foreign countries will get you arrested. And it's kind of weird that people were willing to get the party started over a minor tea tax, but then suddenly after the 1913 Federal Reserve and the war in 1914, they were fine with literally going into forever debt, which is where we are right now. For forever debt, and reducing the dollar by 99% for the rest of the existence of the country. And then, honorable mention the 1971 going off the gold standard under Nixon. After that, the country turned into cattle debt slaves for this Federal Reserve. It's weird how the issue of exponentially increasing debt and increased housing costs with a corresponding erosion of the dollar never gets discussed. Like, it's just an elephant in the room. Really weird. The media won't cover it, and it's not on the mainstream social media. It is, however, discussed on alt media, so you should definitely check out alt media like Odyssey and Bit Chute, even Rumble now. I'm not sure how base Rumble is. Like, there's no way it's as based as Odyssey and Bit Chute because it still has to go through the App Store. But I'm liking what I'm seeing on Rumble, as is. It's like the precursor to Odyssey. Anyway, I mean to like take you down the rabbit hole kind of stuff. So that is something to investigate. That's a little tangent, right? So Dorff says the new movies suck, which they absolutely do, but they're making money, which some of them are, but Hollywood is not making the money it used to make. It's making money from fewer sources as the audience is slowly leaving the mainstream sources of anything behind. And to be fair, the English as a primary language in America, that percentage is falling every year. And those people specifically want to watch shows created in their own language because watching a translation is just not the same. Spielberg made the Romeo and Juliet takeoff. Like half of it was it was like in English and Spanish, but she didn't provide sub translations or something, the what do you call it, the dialogue boxes or something. It's like, to be fair, you could have done the Spanish translations in English, and you could have done the English translations in Spanish. That kind of would have been a balance, but Spielberg didn't want to do that for some reason, so the movie lost $100 million. Anyway, so he mentions Black Adam with the Rock that just came out a couple months ago, and says he never saw it, but he assumes it's not going to stand the test of time. Well, I saw it, and he's absolutely right. Black Adam was pretty bad. Blade will be remembered, is probably remembered more fondly now, 20 plus years later, than anything new that will be remembered 20 years from now, including Black Adam. If you have the resources of a major studio, you should be turning out hits like it's 1983. Instead, they make Black Widow, Birds of Prey, Charlie's Angels, or that movie about the panda that's set in Canada as a metaphor for puberty, but also as kind of globalist propaganda to push an anti-family bit of brainwashing. It's funny because they tied themselves in a knot with that one because they wanted to push the anti-family messaging and then the childhood Epstein type of stuff, but they also wanted to use Asians, so they're in a tricky spot where the propaganda had to be anti-Asian. Sometimes they woke themselves into a knot. I mean, they hate Europeans so much, but they can't put them in everything. Even, I mean, if you haven't seen Velma, I saw issues 5 and 6 the other night. It's just more of the same. I don't even know if I'll do a review on it. It's just like it's. I don't know, how many times can you say the thing is really bad? that I will say that Velma is going to be an albatross around Mindy Kaling's neck. It's that bad. Anyway, the Panda movie lost like $170 million. So congratulations on that. So my point is that Hollywood is not making as much as it used to. They have a increasing amount of bombing films, and not only, and the thing is, there's no reason for films to bomb, right? Like people are really into movies. All you had to do is give people what they want, but they won't do that. But they mostly cannot make movies like they used to because of the post 2020 Soros fueled Black Lives Matter Bolshevik revolution, which I don't see how they turn the future of Hollywood around, even if they wanted to, which they very much do not want to. They are all on board woke. They're going to ride this flaming eyes wide shut train all the way to bankruptcy. Anyway, thanks to everyone who joined over on Rumble and Odyssey and Subscribe Star. Mahalo for that, and I will see you guys all next episode.